And welcome to another edition of Outspoken. Dan Sileo here, and I say this all the time. What another great weekend in sports. Guys, fire the cannons. We wrap up what was a very mediocre Super Bowl 60, to say the least, 29-13. When you're talking about the Seahawks and the way they just completely dominated that football game, really the only thing that was close was the coin toss. For 4 quarters, the Seahawks beat them up front on the offensive line and also on the defensive lines. And you really got to take it in how Klint Kubiak called that football game. There's no doubt that the defensive side of the football with Mike Macdonald's defense and what they did by putting pressure on Drake May, it was absolutely a train wreck if you were the Patriots in the first 3 quarters of that football game. They beat them with running the football. They beat them with toughness. And I'll also say this to you about how Seattle was prepped for this Super Bowl. You're playing in the NFC West, which means you had to go through San Francisco. You had to go through Los Angeles. You were primed and ready to play in what had to be, again, the best division of all National Football League. You could also say the NFC North was also a very difficult division, but that Seahawks team was primed and ready to roll. Let me put this out there, too. The story was Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold may have changed, and we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. Sam Darnold may change how you look at paying quarterbacks. This guy's a $32 million a year guy, right? You don't have to be elite to play in a Super Bowl. Look at the last 2 Super Bowls. Jalen Hurts, a very good football player. Elite? No. Sam Darnold, a very good football player. Elite? No. Play error-free football, get a great defense, and get a run game. That's exactly what the Eagles did a year ago, and that's exactly what this Seahawks team did in Super Bowl 60. They are going to be absolutely one of the favorites, I think, going into the 26th season. I mean, now with the sale of the team, that could change the direction a little bit too. John Schneider, the general manager, has done such a great job at retooling coming out of the Pete Carroll era and now going into the Mike Macdonald era. Think about that. You moved off of Russell Wilson, and now you are in the Sam Darnold area. He's probably going to want more change, and he wants some more, probably a bigger bag of money than the $32 million that he's making. But wow, what a job that they did, and what a gamble. They moved off of Geno Smith, and they went to Sam Darnold. A lot of people were against that move, but it ends up paying off. Who would have thought at the beginning of the year that these 2 football teams would have been the 2 teams that played in Santa Clara? How about this? Let's roll over to this now. Now, who is the kind of the 3 teams that I look at that potentially could go from worst to first? Let's start off with the New York Giants. How about the job that John Harbaugh has done and what he's been able to do by building that coaching staff up? Look at that coaching staff. It is easily one of the most experienced coaching staffs. John Harbaugh said it too. You know, I looked at the roster. I looked at the talent on the team. I do think Joe Schoen's got some question marks. That's the same guy that let Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley out of the building. I have question marks on him going into the NFL draft and also NFL free agency that's starting up here on March 11th. But this Giants team is now in the good hands of John Harbaugh. Truly one of the best CEO head coaches in all of pro football. You know, if you go back in his time at the end there with Baltimore, maybe it was time for a change. Maybe both guys needed new zip codes. You know, the owner and the franchise maybe wanted to go in a different direction, which they have with Jesse Minter, the very young coach who was the defensive coordinator of the Los Angeles Chargers, was up with Harbaugh. Believe me, Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, I think they're probably going in a different direction here and what they want to do defensively. But John Harbaugh has done a spectacular job at building that roster. Will it play into wins and losses this coming season? I think they're one of the teams that you have to look at that's going to be one of the surprises in the upcoming 2026 season. I would also put this out there. If you told me at the beginning of the year in 2025, if you were going to extend a quarterback, C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, you would have said C.J. Stroud was the former Rookie of the Year, hands down. But now look at Carolina. Bryce Young has actually turned the corner, and you're looking at him as the better prospect now. Think about that for a second. You're looking at him as the better prospect. You would give him the fifth-year option. You know, I got to give Dave Canales a lot of love here because Dave Canales pulled him a year ago in the 24 season, and then put in Andy Dalton, let him watch the game, and since that moment, he has been absolutely a quarterback that they drafted, and number one overall, he's starting to look like that guy. I'm a big fan of Bryce Young. I got to say this about the Colts. Last year when Daniel Jones started playing the way he did with Shane Steichen, the head football coach of the Indianapolis Colts, I kept saying this to myself, wait a minute, is that really Daniel Jones? Daniel Jones, the guy who was in New York, who was falling all over himself, who ended up getting cut, who ended up going to Minnesota, and he was on the scout team or the practice team, that Daniel Jones? If you're Minnesota too, you had Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones in your building, and you let those two dudes roll out of the building, what a mistake that was. But Daniel Jones, the defense, Jonathan Taylor, the way they run the football, I got to tell you, man, I am a big fan of what they're doing in Indianapolis. Chris Ballard, the general manager of that football team. I think going into the draft, going into free agency, the Colts have to be one of the teams to keep an eye on in the upcoming 2026 season. Let me bounce the basketball over to LeBron James here. Very seldom do you get an athlete that gets to call his putt and say, I'm out. There is no question that LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers are ending in a really rough divorce here. This is the first time in LeBron James's career that when afforded the opportunity at getting a contract extension, how about this? The Lakers never offered him one. They're clearly going into the direction of Luka. They're going to build the basketball team around Luka. Now, let's be candid here and fair. The guy is 41 years old. Does LeBron James end up in a place like Golden State? Does he go back home to Cleveland and help that basketball team? But let's face it here. The Los Angeles Lakers, probably for about a year and a half now, that basketball team has not been a contender. And with LeBron on that team right now, this is going to be a bad ending to what many people thought. Again, LeBron's not going to get to call his putt. He's 41 years old. He's on this so-called pseudo-victory tour here, but the Lakers are forcing his hand. There's no way that LeBron James is going to be a Los Angeles Laker next season. And I think the Lakers know this, and the Lakers are preparing for this. This is why they're building that basketball team around Luka. Now, again, some of the things that LeBron has done, Maverick Carter and him have carved out what have been one of the greatest careers in NBA history. Let's, look at it for what it is. There's no doubt about it that LeBron will leave the game as one of the 5 greatest players in the history of the NBA. However, when you look at his Lakers stand, outside of the Mickey Mouse NBA trophy they won in Orlando, what do you think his impact has been as a Los Angeles Laker? Is it Wilt? Is it Shaq? Clearly not Kobe. Was never in the building with Kobe Bryant in the impact that LeBron was thought to have brought to the Los Angeles Lakers. Listen, fabulous career. If you're going to build a model on how you build a brand, that's your guy right there. LeBron has been a great ambassador to the sport. But again, maybe going back to Cleveland and ending it where it started for him probably is going to go down, in my opinion. If he ends it there, maybe he goes there and has some type of impact on what is a really good Cavalier team. All right, my great friends are Morgan & Morgan, without a doubt, folks, with over $20 billion recovered. The number one injury law firm in all of America. How about the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650K? They ended up getting $26 million in recovery. How about the family in Florida that was initially offered $350K? They ended up getting $12 million. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. We got a lot of hoop to hit on. Coach James Young is going to join us next. We're going to talk some college basketball and some NBA basketball. Get this, too. Maybe some Miami Hurricane football, too, okay? I got a heads up here that Coach Young is a fan of my Hurricane football team, too. They get to the national championship game. We will talk with him. That is next. Keep it right here on Sports Grid.
Dallas Cowboys. Like, they're competitive every year. They're going to win a Super Bowl? No, but at least at the beginning of the season, like, I have aspirations to make a playoff, maybe win the division, and see what we can do. For the Raiders, every day, the minute you kick off week number 1, you are out of the playoff picture. You stink and can't perform. That's tough because you don't get a 20-year career as a defensive end typically in the NFL. So your time now is to strike. I have all the money. Now I want to win.
The Early Line, only on Sports Grid.
So you know Gary Bettman wants the USA to win because he knows the bump that they can get out of this. Canada wins, and it's like, yeah, whatever. Right? And the level of pressure on Canada in this is next level. It's like it's equivalent to like Argentina in soccer or something, Brazil. It's one of those like, yeah, if you lose, don't bother coming home.
Winter Game Central, only on Sports Grid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
Road trips to Kentucky and Tennessee, which are pressure environments where mistakes can snowball a team quickly. And not even listen out of those games there. How about the home games they have left with Alabama and Florida, who bring size, who bring pace, and physicality that punish you on both ends of the floor.
College basketball today, only on Sports Grid.
You know, I got to tell you, too, right before the show, I go, I was talking to Coach Young here, and he's like, wait a second, Big Cells, I'm a fan of the U here. So before we get into some college and pro basketball here, Coach, I mean, big fan of the U. You must have loved what you saw 41 yards away from winning a national championship against IU. I mean, pretty good stuff this year, especially from where they came from.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, being a big U fan and seeing what Mario has done, we keep asking, is the U back? When is the U back? I think it's back. And obviously you saw what they done, and Baby Jesus coming back for his sophomore year, what they're doing in the transfer portal. It seems like Miami is, they're the Florida state champs, and that's one thing that we want to get every year. But let's see if they can finish the job. Obviously, getting Mensah there and then getting obviously the receiver from Duke is going to be a big step up for a Miami team that, let's be honest, we you being a former U guy, we want the glory days, and it looks like the glory days seem to be back with the U.
Absolutely here. So you know what I'll do? I'll go to another Miami. So let's bounce to basketball and college hoop. How good is this Miami of Ohio team?
Yeah, they're very good. I mean, listen, they're the only undefeated team left in the country now. The thing that's going to be hard, Dan, is when you get to the NCAA tournament, where are you going to see the team that possibly can be undefeated with no what we call quad one wins, meaning top quality wins? That's going to be the interesting thing. What you could get is you could get them in like an 8-9 matchup, maybe a 7-10 matchup, but a great story nonetheless that people are going to be watching with Miami, Ohio this year being undefeated. Let's see if they get all the way to the end.
Do you agree, Coach, that if you go back a couple of years ago when, Carmelo Anthony and that Cuse team ended up getting into the Albany region, it's going to be really where they get placed in the tournament because, again, depending on where they're going to be placed in their seeding, it's really going to dictate on how far that basketball team will go because, again, that Cuse team, they were home, they were around in the same region. Is this going to be kind of the same case for them, where they get seeded and most importantly, what region they get placed in?
I'll give you one deeper, Dan. It's who they're going against. Dan, I'm a huge believer of the term styles make fights, right? So if they have a team that's loaded with big men, if they get, I don't know, if they're the same region of Florida and you got to go against Howe and Chinaloo and Condon, it's going to be too much for them. A team that's a little bit more perimeter-based, not athletic, that's going to be the key. So before you start and run to the window and you put your numbers in and try to bet, let's say Miami, Ohio to not even get to the Final Four, then not even get to the Elite Eight, but just to make it to the Sweet 16. Let's let it play out. Let's see them get their region, and then once they get their region and see who their bracket is, then that'll be a good appropriate time to start the bet, because you haven't seen them against a lot of top flight competition to kind of gauge where they're truly at.
I watched earlier in the week, I watched Kansas beat Arizona, and Arizona is one of the more physically dominating basketball teams underneath. I mean, they're a big team. But Kansas and Bill Self and what he's been able to do by getting that basketball team to start really picking up their game as they're getting closer to the conference tournaments and also to the NCAA tournament. How good is Kansas, and are you worried about Arizona after that loss?
Well, I think, Dan, Arizona's got dragged into the deep end of the pool, if you know what I'm saying. And now they got to start to battle some teams. They're in a tough spot today, by the way, going against Texas Tech. They got to go to Houston next weekend. So we'll know a lot more about Arizona because they're getting to that really difficult schedule in regards to the Big 12. In regards to Kansas, it's about Darren Peterson. Obviously, Darren Peterson was out with the flu. We'll see. He should be in action. There are props out there for him in the matchup today versus Iowa State. But to me, with Melvin Council, with Flory Badunga, with White, there are other guys that have now stepped up. To me, that makes Kansas folks ready, more dangerous as these other guys start to play. And now Darren Peterson, who is, remember, folks, has gone under 20 straight points in 4 straight games, shooting a combined 10 of 28 from the floor the last 2 games. We'll see a Kansas team that now Darren Peterson, ready, folks, doesn't have to carry the entire offensive load.
Coach, give me your 4 teams right now. Guys that you're looking at right now. Michigan probably is in that conversation. Arizona is in that conversation. Maybe in Iowa State also is in that conversation. What 4 teams are you looking at right now on this day here on Valentine's Day that you think are your 4 teams right now?
Well, Arizona, for the body of work, is going to be there, right? Same thing with Michigan. Duke is going to be interesting because I was talking about this with Kevin on college basketball today before. If they get dragged into that deep end of the pool, right, slow down game, I'm concerned if they have to guard play overall. They don't have the Con Knipples and the Sion Jameses and the Cooper Flags to save you. Obviously, and I do struggle with teams with their best player being a big. Couple of teams to watch out for. Dan, Houston's here. They're playing at their defensive high level, and Kingston Flemings, ready, folks, is the best offensive guard that Calvin Sampson has had at Houston. And that's saying something with Uzan, Sharp, Sasser, Jamal Shedd. So they're fantastic. Now you get to the Big East. What are these 2 teams? We'll see how it sticks out. UConn, St. John's. St. John's won the matchup last week. Rick Pitino's leaning on that bench a little bit more. They're playing a little bit up tempo, and that pressure defense is something. But Dan, going against Dan Hurley in March, with the way he grinds it down with Terrace Reed. Look at Terrace Reed, by the way, folks, over 7.5 rebounds today. Look for Terrace Reed rebounding with Ball, with DeMary, with Mullins. That team with Caravan, they're in that deep end where you don't want to see UConn in March.
How about this, too? 30 seconds here, Nova. Nova's starting to play some pretty good basketball as of late. Do you think they're in a 3 seed? Do you think they're in a 2 seed? Are they driving themselves up there? Do you think that could be a possible contender in a dark horse?
Yeah, I love what's going on there. And I've obviously known some of the guys and obviously known my guy Randy Ford really well. I kind of watch this team a lot. They're playing really good basketball. Obviously getting Duke Brennan, getting him to be a double-double guy with the guards, with Hodge as a shooter. And Dan, they can defend that ball. But tricky spot going to go play Coach McDermott and Creighton today on the road. Get that win. Keep winning. You could be that 3rd team in the Big East. You can find yourself into a good seed come tournament time.
Real quick, Boozer to player of the year?
He's a player of the year right now, but it's got a lot of time. Those Big 12 guys, the band has been outstanding, and people won't say this, but Kingston Flemings, if he puts up big scoring games for a team that not traditionally scores, he could be there as well in the end.
NBA All-Star Game is on Sunday, and we're going to talk to Coach Young about is there any way, or is the All-Star Game going the way of the Pro Bowl? I mean, we shall see. According to KD, people are ruining the game. We'll hit on that next. Keep it here on Sports Grid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
I don't think he was trying to take a shot at the team at all. It was just a plain and simple and obvious fact.
I think what's difficult, though, is, and I agree with you, right? I guess I agree with LeBron. The assessment of it all, it's why the Lakers organization seems to be comfortable with that truth, unless they disagree. But again, I don't really know how you disagree.
Game time decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
You guys had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You knew you were facing a Mike Macdonald defense that disguises everything, and that was your game plan, to play scared. I mean, Mike Vrabel, I love the guy. He played that game, Donnie, like it was a preseason scrimmage in August and not the Super Bowl.
The early line. Only on Sports Grid.
It looked like a clump of grass. It didn't look like an eagle. That's the one, by the way, that USA Today claimed was the best ad. They thought the Lay's ad was number 2. The worst ad was any ad that had AI in it or had an AI company behind it. It wasn't because of the AI. It was because they were the most nonsensical ads you've ever seen. Does anybody look at these ads and understand if they are actually trying to do what they're trying to do, which is to showcase the product as opposed to being great with AI? Very embarrassing.
Newswire. Only on Sports Grid.
You know, I can't remember the last time that I watched an NBA All-Star game going all the way through. Now, back in the day, now look, I'm going to sound like, oh man, get off my lawn. When I used to watch the slam dunk contest and the three-point shooting when he had Larry Bird and all those guys. So, Coach, the All-Star game, is it going by the way of the Pro Bowl where there's no way we can save this thing? Or do you think, again, there's going to be some modifications to the All-Star game? Are they going to try to save this thing, unlike the Pro Bowl in the NFL?
Dan, I got to be honest with you. I said this 2 years ago, and you can go look at it on all my appearances. I said the only way to save the All-Star game is to go USA World. And my thought was like, okay, if you did it on not the years where we have the Olympics or FIBA, that would kind of get people interested. But now you're here. This is, Dan, the only chance. And I think they should have put more money in there, kind of like they do with the in-season tournament. But I've also said this. The team that should win, if you line the teams up, is the world team. And they don't even have Giannis. And that's the thing. If we're going to, and I'm almost 50, right? So to me, I look at, like you said, 88 slam dunk contests. You know, Dominique versus Jordan. Same year, Larry Bird shoots a three, puts his one finger up as he's walking back as he makes it. I don't even know half of these guys that are in the slam dunk contest and the three-point shootout, and I'm an analyst. So to me, if I don't know who half of these guys are, until you get the best to be in the three-point shootout, to be in the slam dunk contest, that's the only chance you save it. Then the best part of the All-Star Weekend last couple of years, honestly, was Sabrina Ionescu versus Steph Curry. Because we got Curry in a three-point contest, and he almost lost. So to me, that's the only way we could save it. Best guys got to be involved, and not the skills challenge, the real stuff. And then, can we get some damn defense on tomorrow night, please? For the country, we need it.
Coach, throw this at me here. You know, how much has load management played into the mentality of today's NBA, in your opinion? I mean, you know, if I'm a person that's going to go buy an NBA ticket and I show up with my kid and all of a sudden that guy's not in the building, how much of that attitude do you think has been carried? Am I old man, get off my lawn here? You know, Jordan constantly, I watched him talk about load management. He goes, you know, I played 82 basketball games almost every single year of my career, and I had a love of the game clause in my contract, which meant I'm going to play the game no matter what. Has that really damaged the game, in your opinion?
It has damaged the game, but Dan, unfortunately, this is where we are, and this is where it's going to be. So we have to deal with it. You even see it a little bit in college basketball. Darren Peterson against BYU didn't play literally the last 17 minutes of a game. They almost blew it because they were worried about his minutes. So to me, we're here, Dan, and that's the unfortunate thing. The thing that bothers me more is the tanking. And you saw it on full display with the Utah Jazz over a week ago where they're winning and they don't play marketing Jaren Jackson Jr., Keontae George in the fourth quarter to lose a game. And now Jaren Jackson, you see with Dallas, we're going, ready for this right now, Dallas, watch it. We're going to, and I quote, we're going to sit Anthony Davis as he prepares for the 26-27 season. Dan, that's 9 months from now. Look, you want to wait for next year? So that's my bigger problem is this. But hopefully the NBA will start to figure this out because they're ruining the product in regard to what the people are watching. This isn't a get off our lawn. This is fact, and there's got to be changes, particularly with the tanking.
All right, let's go to Los Angeles and tell me what you think the future of LeBron James is with the Lakers. If you had to bet, is he going to retire as a Laker? Does he go to, say, Golden State? Or does he go back home and does he go to Cleveland? What do you think the future of LeBron James is?
I'll tell you 2 exact words of what I think. He gone. He's not coming back to the Lakers. I mean, this is obvious with the ownership change, the Genie Bus story, which I still think LeBron may have been a part of this thing getting out. And obviously with the Luka stuff, they've transitioned that this is Luka's team. LeBron James is going to chase a ring. It's going to be whether if he goes back to Miami to try that again, or he goes to Cleveland or to Golden State. And then there's the almighty sleeper, and no one wants to hear this. It's the Knicks. If he ever goes to New York and they don't win a championship this year, and all of a sudden he's a part of a team that wins their first championship since '73, then he could try and say, I'm the greatest of all time. Here's another get off my lawn part. He ain't ever going past Jordan. No way, no how.
I completely agree. Listen, I think he's one of the best players in the history of the game. You could play him at all 5 spots, but I don't think he's better than Kobe. Okay, so I'm going to throw that in the room there as well. He is one of the 5 best. Coach, I hope you'll come back again. I had a blast with you, and I got to shoot it to you here. Let me go here, all right?
Ooh,
there you go, to you. All right, we're ready to rock.
It's always about
Steve
the you, baby.
He's next right here on Sports Grid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
I don't think he was trying to take a shot at the team at all. It was just a plain and simple and obvious fact.
I think what's difficult, though, is, and I agree with you, right? I guess I agree with LeBron. The assessment of it all, it's why the Lakers organization seems to be comfortable with that truth, unless they disagree. But again, I don't really know how you disagree.
Game time decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
You guys had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You knew you were facing a Mike Macdonald defense that disguises everything, and that was your game plan, to play scared. I mean, Mike Vrabel, I love the guy. He played that game, Donnie, like it was a preseason scrimmage in August and not the Super Bowl.
The Early Line. Only on Sports Grid.
It looked like a clump of grass. It didn't look like an eagle. That's the one, by the way, that USA Today claimed was the best ad. They thought the Lay's ad was number 2. The worst ad was any ad that had AI in it or had an AI company behind it. It wasn't because of the AI. It was because they were the most nonsensical ads you've ever seen. Does anybody look at these ads and understand if they are actually trying to do what they're trying to do, which is to showcase the product as opposed to being great with AI? Very embarrassing.
Newswire. Only on Sports Grid.
You know, I had Coach Jim Calhoun on with me a couple shows ago, and we were talking about the legendary Big East and back in the day with Rolly Massimino and with coaches like that, Louis Carnesecca and John Thompson. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever see that again, but my friend Steve Lappas joins us here. And, Coach, I got to ask you, do you ever think we'll ever see a conference as dominant as that ever again on what that old Big East was?
You know, not the way this new day and age is. You know, one thing we got to realize about those days were, you know, college basketball was just starting to become what college basketball is. TV had just started. So the marriage between TV and the Big East starting when it did, and then again, those guys that became coaches not to make money. You got to understand this. When those guys got in the business, and Jim Boeheim said this to me once, he goes, you know, 10 years ago, they used to call us gym teachers. And it was exactly true. You know, these guys didn't become coaches to make money. They became coaches because they loved helping kids. They loved the game. They loved teaching the game. So, no, those days, I think, are dead and gone.
So, Coach, let me start there with Nova then. You know, they've been playing some really good basketball as of late. Your takeaways on what kind of impact do you think that Nova can make in the tournament?
Well, I think they've had a great year. Let's face it. After going 3 years without being in the tournament, I think just getting in this year would be a huge step. I think right now they're probably sitting at an 8 seed, which would put them in have like a 50-50 game in the first round of the tournament. I don't think going far in the tournament is that big for them this year. I think the idea was to have this kind of year, get in, which they will be in. They still have a pretty young team. You know, Caden Lewis is one of their best players. A freshman point guard has been spectacular. Matt Hodge, who played for Brian Lynch, I heard was being talked about. Guy who played for me. He played for Brian Lynch in New Jersey. He's a freshman. So, I mean, they're still a pretty young team. And I think the key is if Kevin Willard, who's done a great job, can bring this core back next year. And with that, you never know if that could happen. But I think they've had a great year. They shoot the ball extremely well. And they just have they have great chemistry, which is always important in basketball.
Coach, when, I think probably the Kansas Jayhawks with that upset of Arizona at the beginning of the week, a great start to the week, but I'm hearing more and more about this Wisconsin team. How much of an impact do you think the Badgers can make, not only in the Big Ten tournament, but also in the NCAA tournament?
Well, they've played better and better as the years gone on, and Nick Boyd has been tremendous. So between Nick Boyd and Blackwell, they have two guys that can really be explosive. We know Greg Gard is a really good coach. And, playing in that league, you're always going to go through a period where, like right now, Michigan State, they're not playing great right now. But that could change, on a dime. And the same thing with Wisconsin. They had struggled earlier in the year at times. Now they're looking like they're a really, really good team. So, Dan, I find it hard to believe that Kansas upset somebody in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I don't care what it is. How many times has Bill Self been an underdog? Or how many times has Kansas, period, been an underdog at home in that building? I don't know, boy. You can count it on one hand, probably.
Absolutely. Probably since back in the days of the Peach Baskets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we go back that far back there. UConn, can they make any statement? Are they sitting at a number 2 seed in your opinion right now? Again, they're always a dangerous team. They're a deep team. Maybe not the team that they were. Coach Calhoun said maybe not the team they had a year ago, but that basketball team is a team that could be a danger in the tournament. Do you agree?
Oh, no question about it. I mean, this team could win the whole thing. I mean, let's face it. And I think the one thing that they have that they didn't have as much of last year is they have a really good bench besides being the team that they are in terms of their starters. Silas Demery has had a really good year, except for that 9 turnover aberration that he had against St. John's, has had a really, really good year. And he's a freshman. They have big guys. They got Reeby coming off the bench, who's a good player. They shoot the ball well. Solo Ball's been up and down this year. I mean, he's going to be a big key. If he can get himself going, because he is a tremendous three-point shooter who hasn't shot it great this year, that's big. Braylon Mullins, and let's understand this. They've lost 2 games, One was the St. John's. One was home to Arizona. But when they lost to Arizona, they didn't have Tarris Reed and they didn't have Braylon Mullins. That's 2 starters, and they lost by 2 points in that game. So this UConn team certainly can win the national title.
Coach, if you looked at the Cyclones and the Cougars, Houston Cougars, those 2 basketball teams, give me your assessment on those 2 teams because, I hear a lot of people telling me, hey, look out for those guys. I'm not calling them dark horses, Coach, but I'm not also saying this. I don't know if they're going to be a 1 seed and get a number 1 seeding, but, you look at those 2 teams. Could they be a team that could make also some damage in the tournament?
All right, here's what you always got to keep in mind, Dan. There are 4 teams in the country right now who are in the top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Michigan, Arizona, Iowa State, and Houston. So those teams, if you're in the top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency, you certainly have a chance to win a national title. Now, I would say Michigan and Arizona right now, to me, are just a slight bit above those 2. But those teams are both very, very good. They're very tough. They're both underrated offensively. Kingston Flemings is a freshman who's a guard for Houston. That, I don't know, we talk about, Boozer, we talk about DeBanza, and we talk about Peterson, and we really don't talk about Kingston Flemings much, and he may be as good as any of them. And he's been tremendous. Plus, Kelvin Sampson has been able to do this thing the way, like if I were still coaching, the way I would be trying to do it today is recruit freshmen, retain guys, and use the portal here and there. And that's kind of what Kelvin Sampson has done. He's only got 1 guy on the team from the portal, and that's Milos Uzan, who he had last year that he got from Oklahoma. So he has 2 really good freshmen, Flemings and Sinak. He's got Uzan, he's got Sharp, he's got Tugler. He's got experienced guys. He's got really good freshmen. He's got guys he's retained. That's the key. And it's the same thing with TJ Otzelberger. His team is basically back from last year. Joshua Jefferson, Momcilovic. These guys all played last year. What's his name? Lipsy, the point guard. So these are 2 teams that have a lot back from last year, added a piece here and there, and both have a chance.
Coach, let me ask you, in college football, the transfer portal in NIL has almost made it impossible to build cohesiveness and really a culture. How difficult is it today to coach in today's landscape when you have the money and you have the portal?
It's really hard. And the truth is, I think the harder part of the 2 things, it's a bad combination. The portal and the money is a bad combination. If it were just the money and no portal, things would be much, much more under control. Now, don't get me wrong, the kids would be making money, but they wouldn't be this every year free agency, with no contracts, no nothing. There isn't a league in the world that doesn't have contracts that, stop you from going year to year somewhere else. In college basketball right now, you can go wherever you want, when you want. If they didn't have, if there was a penalty for sitting out, like there used to be, of sitting out a year, that would change things significantly in college basketball, even if nothing happened with the NIL.
Absolutely. Here, we're going to talk more with Coach here, and I want to get his takeaways on Rick Pitino. He passes Roy Williams for 3rd, I believe, on the all-time list when it comes to wins in college basketball. We'll talk more a little bit about that, too, because building a team, building cohesiveness, NIL and transfer portal, is it good or is it bad for college sports? There's no doubt in college football that has been an issue. Trying to go out and have to re-recruit your own roster each and every single year has been one of the most difficult things to do. More with Steve Lappas here. We'll do that next right here on Sports
Radio. Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
Okay, it was me. I did it.
Bringing an owl to an interrogation? That's a power move.
Every time.
Yeah. Hiring America's largest injury law firm for your injury? That's also a power move.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
The level of hockey is being played. Like, if you're not really into the NHL, you should watch this and you will enjoy it. Like, it's a different level of hockey. Like, the NHL, basically, there's like 6 really good guys on each team. And in the Olympics, like, every guy is good. Like, it's next level. It's something to behold.
Winter Game Central, only on Sports Grid.
We went against this god-awful biggest waste of human flesh in basketball uniform Western Illinois team last time out. Remember, they actually won a game against Eastern Illinois, only their 5th win on the season, 5-21, only their first win in conference play in the Ohio Valley. They're hosting Little Rock. You know, Little Rock is 6-8. They're halfway decent. I mean, they're better than 5-21.
In-game live, only on Sports Grid.
They're probably not going to take a lot of Seattle bets. Putting Kansas City at the same number as Detroit or behind LA, way behind Green Bay, way behind Buffalo or Baltimore, who they beat every year, it feels like they are asking for Chiefs.
You know, I'm always partial to an Italian who has an O in his last. Your opinion, his impact that he has had on the game of college basketball.
Wait a minute, you don't like Greeks with an S at the end of their name? I mean, what the heck? How about I've got to be a place for those guys too. I mean, my goodness.
Well, Raleigh Massimino, you worked for him too, Coach. He has an O in that name too, right?
Well, here's what I'll tell you: Rick Pitino is one of the best ever, and he'd be up there. He'd be right near Coach K right now in terms of wins if he doesn't go to the NBA for, I guess, I don't know, like 10 years or so. It was probably close to that, if not 10. So, I mean, he's a tremendous coach. And, you know, you got to – one thing about Rick, and I've known him for over 40 years, he's always been a developing coach, you know, a guy who develops guys, a guy he recruits guys as freshmen, and then by the time they're seniors, they're great. But those days are over. So now he's adapted to this new world in terms of he's such a great coach that kids want to play for him because every kid wants to get to the NBA. So feel like this guy has a reputation of getting the most out of his guys. And that, don't get me wrong, they have a really good NIL program, obviously. They're paying guys well. But the combination of the money and having a guy like him there that kids want to play for, and they know going in, this guy's not going to be easy. But if I do what he says, he'll get the most out of me, and I'll get to where I want to get to. So, I mean, he kind of was made for this day and age because he's getting guys now that I don't want to say are ready-made players, but they are really good players that he's got to develop somewhat, and he's got to put a team together somewhat. And that's why the last 2 preseasons, they've struggled a little bit, but as the year has gone on, both years, they've got – and 2 years ago also, not just last year and this year, they get better and better as the year goes on. So, I mean, he's adapted to everything. When the three-point shot came around, he was using it more than anybody else. He's an adaptable guy.
Absolutely, and he's been an energy guy since Providence. The Johnnies, do you think they have, like, can they make any noise whatsoever? I don't think they're very deep this year as they were a couple of years ago, but like you mentioned, you think the Johnnies can do anything, St. John's?
You know, I think they definitely can get to the second weekend. I don't doubt that. You know, last year they ran into obviously a much underrated. And that, you know, a lot of this is luck too. Like last year, they get a 10 seed in the second round as Arkansas. Now, let me tell you something. Arkansas, from a talent standpoint, was no 10 seed. You know, they had an up and down year. They ended up being a 10 seed. And what happens in that game is you really saw they were the 10 seed, and they had, to me, overall, the better players. They were bigger. They were longer. They were more athletic. They made life very hard. So a lot depends on the matchups. But yet, and you know what? It drives me nuts when people say, well, can this team get to the Final Four? Can that team get to the Final Four? Well, how about this? We've seen George Mason get to a Final Four. We've seen Butler get to Final Fours. You know, we've seen teams get to Final Fours that we wouldn't have never guessed in a million years. So, yeah, all these teams that we're talking about, can St. John's get to the Final Four? Absolutely. Do I think they will? No, I don't. But can they get there? Absolutely.
Coach, you mentioned Arkansas. Give me a spin on what you think Calipari has done there in Little Rock. What's your takeaway on him building that program? I mean, he comes over from Kentucky. You know, he's a guy, obviously, every place that he's gone, he's the one and done king. He's the guy that believes that. The landscape, as you said, in college basketball has changed forever because of the money and transfer portal. The job that Calipari's done there in Little Rock.
He's done a great job. And because there's another team that I wouldn't be surprised went to the Final Four, and he's got a freshman that nobody talks about who's as good as any freshman in the country, in Darius Acuff. And they got another kid, freshman, their two high scorers are freshmen. Now, they also have Trayvon Brazile, who's a 6'11 kid that's really good. They have Billy Kennedy. They have Carter Knox. These guys are experienced. So he's got that combination that I was talking about before of young guys. You know, Cal's gotten away from strictly one and dones, especially nowadays with kids staying longer. You know, if you're a second-round draft pick 5 years ago, you were leaving. If you're a second-round draft pick now and you have eligibility left, you're going to make more money in college than you would make in the G League. They're staying. So college basketball, the game itself is pretty good. And the reason why, it's gotten older. So Calipari now has a combination. He's got some great freshmen, no doubt, but he's got some really good experience. DeJuan Wagner, I didn't mention him either. He's got some really good experienced upperclassmen, and that's why I think he's got a pretty good team.
Coach, you really you landed on something there that makes me think back to the days. You know, we started our conversation off talking about, you know, the days of the Big East here. Do you think NIL is making college basketball more experienced now? Do you think now you're seeing like maybe a little bit of the return where, you know, one of the things, and I wonder if you can help me out on this, do you think you really still have to have a backcourt, a great backcourt, if you're going to go on an NCAA championship? But for you, do you think, Neil, that's maybe one of the positives that you're seeing a more experienced college basketball?
100%. College basketball right now, from just the game standpoint, I think is in a pretty good place. I mean, for years and years, everybody that was young left. They'd go in the second round. They didn't care. This NIL is stopping that. Now, who's going to leave? Yeah, the top 10, 12 picks are still going to leave to go to the NBA. No question. But that's it. Nobody's going to – if you got eligibility left and you're a second-round draft pick, you are probably one of the best players on your team. And if you're one of the best players on a Power 5 team, you're making couple million dollars that you're not going to make in the G League. So yes, I think it is definitely going to make college basketball older, and I think it's going to make college basketball better. Yes, we're still going to lose the top guy, just like we lost Cooper Flagg last year. If you're going to be the first pick in the draft, the NIL is never going to come close to that. But you know, after the top 10 or 12 picks, guys are going to stick around.
Coach, 30 seconds. Boozer or Tippin, Wooden Award winner. Who do you like?
Wow. I'm going to go Boozer for now. You know, Toppin's had an unbelievable year, but I'm going to say Boozer has done it, and the kind of year that Duke is having, I'm going to say Cam Boozer right now.
Well, Coach, I'll tell you this. Greeks and Italians, I think we're kind of close together there. So, I mean, I think we're good here. Coach, I appreciate you always finding time for me. Thank you so much. And again, hopefully we can do this again. Thank you so much, Coach.
You got it, Dan. Take care.
You got it. That is Steve Lappas here, and we got our Sileo Says, the NCAA. We'll do that next. Keep it right here. Sportsman.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
I don't think he was trying to take a shot at the team at all. It was just a plain and simple and obvious fact.
I think what's difficult, though, is, and I agree with you, right? I guess I agree with LeBron. The assessment of it all, it's why the Lakers organization seems to be comfortable with that truth, unless they disagree. But again, I don't really know how you disagree.
Game time decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
You guys had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You knew you were facing a Mike Macdonald defense that disguises everything, and that was your game plan, to play scared. I mean, Mike Vrabel, I love the guy. He played that game, Donnie, like it was a preseason scrimmage in August and not the Super Bowl.
The early line. Only on Sports Grid.
It looked like a clump of grass. It didn't look like an eagle. That's the one, by the way, USA Today claimed was the best ad. They thought the Lay's ad was number 2. The worst ad was any ad that had AI in it or had an AI company behind it. It wasn't because of the AI. It was because they were the most nonsensical ads you've ever seen. Does anybody look at these ads and understand if they are actually trying to do what they're trying to do, which is to showcase the product as opposed to being great with AI? Very embarrassing.
Newswire. Only on Sports Grid.
You know, one of my favorite things that I got into sports broadcasting for was one of the reasons is the NCAA. I like to call it the National Communist Association of America, for how that they was really heavy-handed over the athletes for all the generations when kids never got paid. The NCAA took a year of my eligibility away when I was at the University of Miami. So maybe I have an axe to grind, and I've always had this soapbox that I've always gone on. It's because the NCAA has never cared about a kid. They've only cared about the conferences, coaches making money. Every single time I ever hear a coach say, hey, this is about the kids, I look up and I see a coach making $12 to $14 million like a Lane Kiffin. This has never been about the kids. Now, today, it is. Trinidad Chandler, congratulations to you. You get to stuff it right back into the NCAA's faces with an extra year of eligibility. Kudos to you that you get a chance to go back to Ole Miss and go back and play and maybe enhance your status in the next year's draft. Anytime you hear the NCAA, and the NCAA is going to fight this, kid wants to go back to college. Since when is that a bad thing? According to the NCAA, once again, the toothless organization. I can't wait until that entity is burned to the ground. They are obsolete in today's college sports. Make no mistake about it. The National Communist Association is on a vapor right now when it comes to governing college football. We need a commissioner, not this so-called NCAA. I love it. It's dying on the vine right in front of my eyes as NIL and the transfer portal are destroying it right in front of their eyes. Kid like this gets an opportunity to go back to college and to make more money. Hell, I thought going to college was to learn how to make money. Don't ever let the NCAA get in the way of a kid trying to go back to school. Gee, really? To do something for his institution. To thank the institution for, guess what? For giving and taking a chance. Remember, Trinidad Chandler came from a small school. Lane Kiffin found him. Now he's got an opportunity to go and to enhance himself in next year's draft, in the 2027 draft. He had a great playoff. He almost beat the University of Miami. And I love the fact that the kid gets an extra year of eligibility. I love it every single time that I get a chance to watch all these colleges and all these college kids beating the NCAA. There'll come a day, if you're the Big Ten and you're the Southeastern Conference, why are you even listening to these people? These people have no jurisdiction any longer over big-time college sports. They had a bylaw book from 1954 all the way up until the early 2000s. They never changed any of the bylaws that were in favor of college kids when it came to transferring. Hey, look, I had to sit out when I transferred to the University of Miami from Maryland. And I don't begrudge these kids today that don't have to sit out. I absolutely love the fact that they don't have to sit out and they get a chance to go and they get a chance to improve their draft status and also to make money. Byron Brown, the kid that was at USF, the quarterback, he gets a $3.5 million nil to go play football at Auburn. I mean, folks, this is what the nil was meant to be, and I love it. I love the transfer portal. I love that kids don't have to sit. You know, my school, the University of Miami back in the day, I talked to Brent Musburger about this. You would have had to pay over $100 million for the players that were on my team. My backups alone were Cortez Kennedy and Russell Maryland. I mean, you're not keeping kids like that behind players. Those kids are going to transfer today and have an opportunity to make money in other institutions and other programs. Look at Indiana, what Indiana did with nil. Look at what Indiana did when it came to being able to use the transfer portal. Kurt Cignetti did a great job with that. And get this, the NCAA, the problem that they have is that they're losing control of the game of college sports. You just heard Coach Lappas talking. Again, basketball, college football, this is where the money is made. And the NCAA is losing their foothold on all of these college programs and these college coaches. Trinidad Chandler gets an extra year of eligibility. Kudos to you, dude. Fortunately, you had to go to court, not the court of public opinion. The NCAA pretends that there's some sort of justice and law. You're not any longer. You've lost it. College sports is running past you, and it's about time. It's time to end this thing. Somebody do me a favor and put the NCAA to sleep. Please. Be a great day when that entity is no longer, and you're seeing kids like Trinidad Chandler get a chance to go on and play more years in college sports. I love it. No doubt about it. Rohit Pinaya is going to be with us. We are going to talk some college hoop. That's next. Keep it right here.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into Sports Grid and get ahead of the class.
I don't think he was trying to take a shot at the team at all. It was just a plain and simple and obvious fact.
I think what's difficult, though, is, and I agree with you, right? I guess I agree with LeBron. The assessment of it all, it's why the Lakers organization seems to be comfortable with that truth, unless they disagree. But again, I don't really know how you disagree.
Game time decisions. Only on Sports Grid.
You guys had 2 weeks to prepare for this game. You knew you were facing a Mike Macdonald defense that disguises everything, and that was your game plan, to play scared. I mean, Mike Vrabel, I love the guy. He played that game, Donnie, like it was a preseason scrimmage in August and not the Super Bowl.
The early line. Only on Sports Grid.
It looked like a clump of grass. It didn't look like an eagle. That's the one, by the way, USA Today claimed was the best ad. They thought the Lay's ad was number 2. The worst ad was any ad that had AI in it or had an AI company behind it. It wasn't because of the AI. It was because they were the most nonsensical ads you've ever seen. Does anybody look at these ads and understand if they are actually trying to do what they're trying to do, which is to showcase the product as opposed to being great with AI? Very embarrassing.
Newswire. Only on Sports Grid.